Hello, welcome to a brief demo on coil building with slabs. So you have the slabs you rolled out in class. You're going to use the cup in your bin as a template, like I showed you earlier. Flip it upside down and cut 2 circles out. So you'll have 2 bases for your cups, and you'll have some scrap right away. So I'd take any scraps you have and keep making them into a pile that'll stop it from drying out fast. You could even put this away back in your bin, so you might want to use it for later. Then you'll have your slabs, and the rest of this slab you want to make into coils. So you're going to use a piece of what I gave you from your bin as a template for coils. So you're going to put that right up against it and cut. And once you have one cut, you can line up this stick right up against the previous cut and only make one cut each time to get multiple coils. So now you have your coils. You might want to work on each cup at the same time, or you could try working on one and then the other. I find that if I try to coil build something quickly and at the same time it starts to get too wet and flop, so I recommend maybe working on both at the same time. So you're going to take this and you're going to fill it with some water, and you're going to use the fork and possibly a sponge. You just use your needle tool and maybe a rib to help clean some stuff up later. So this is a metal rib. So the first I'm going to do is slip and score, or I call scratch and attach. So I'm dipping my fork in the water each time I go to scratch. And because I'm putting my fork in that water and then scratching, it's actually creating slip for me instead of using a different slip, a separate slip that I'm applying. And the scratching also helps create a Velcro-like texture that will help my two pieces combine when I'm hand building. So I'm going to scratch the base and then scratch one of my coils. And I'm going to put that on top. And if it meets up, that's great. If it doesn't, you might need to add a little piece of coil, or if your coil is too long, you might need to cut some off. So the next thing you want to do is smooth out all of these seams. And you always want to have one hand or finger inside to help support it. So you never want to just push from one side without supporting your piece. And I like to say it's kind of like smearing peanut butter over a piece of bread. You don't want to break the bread, you just want to move that peanut butter around. So you want to use a firm but gentle pressure to cover those seams. And that's when, if you're getting a little wet, you could bring a slightly damp or dry sponge in and smooth those seams down there too. Alright, so once you have your first coil on, you need to put a little coily roll on the inside corner there. So I'll take a piece of my scrap, just roll it between my hands or roll it on the table. And I just want to make a thin little linguine that can fit on the inside of this. So my clay is pretty wet. I don't really need to scratch in there. I think it'll move around just fine. So I put that coil in there and I'm just pushing. You don't have to pick yours up like this. I'm just doing this to show you what I'm doing. I'm just pushing this into that corner and smoothing it out really good. So I'm going to take a moment and do that. Notice I'm supporting this, and it might move around. It might get a crazy shape as you're using it, but don't worry. This is practice building. So now see, I smooth that in. All right. and I smooth this outside. And then if I have like a little piece missing, I can always, you don't want to trap air, but I can always put a little piece, make sure I'm pushing wherever I put clay, so I don't trap air. All right, I have the base of my cup all set. Now I just scratch and attach. You want to get about 5 or 6 inches, so it's probably like 5 or 6 of these coils. This can happen quickly as far as physically building it, but you want to take your time, because if you build too fast, it's going to collapse on you. So now I have all that scratched, and I'm going to scratch another coil. And I'm going to combine those two pieces. And now this is where it starts to get tricky, because now this is a little wet and this is wet. So I really want to take my time and support. And I am rushing this for you in this video. You can take your time. So say I have a hand on the inside that's supporting that seam as I press. And you want to actually move the clay around. And if you're having trouble with your finger, you can try that metal rib and pull the clay up that way. And I'm going to go all the way around till I have all that smooth. Now, I have this piece missing here, so I can just grab a shorter coil, take it there, measure it, cut it with my needle tool, and scratch and attach and put this piece in. Make sure I'm scratching and attaching all the parts that are touching each other. Make sure you're using that water with the fork so that you actually create some slip. I can take my time here and really spend a moment smoothing all this out. The objective is to get rid of the seam, the line. If you have like a little bit of texture from your rib or from your hands, that's okay. We're really just trying to make a strong vessel. In addition to that being smooth, you also want to smooth the inside. So you can't see, but I have one finger on the inside and my outside hand supporting, and I'm pushing the clay just like I did on the outside to smooth that so there's no seam. So this first cup you want to get about 5 or 6 inches up, and you want it to be very cylindrical. If you want to work on your other cup at the same time, this one you want to go flare out. The only difference here is when you put the coils on. So I want to scratch, scratch, scratch. Scratch this coil. If you feel like the clay is very wet and flimsy, you always could leave it out for a little while and let it stiffen up. I wouldn't leave it out too long, it'll dry up on you. To make your cup flare out, you need to take the coil and just put it a little towards the outside of the ring. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to smooth all of these over. You're going to fill in any missing gaps with another coil. And you're going to run this up another 5 or 6 coils high to get to that 5 or 6 inches. You're still smoothing, like I said, supporting on the inside. The only difference is you're letting the clay kind of naturally fold out because you put that coil a little closer to the outside. So I'd scratch, scratch there, scratch this, and every time I'm going up now, I'm letting it open up. I'm not staying super cylindrical. I'm letting it kind of go towards the outside and start to open up, and you'll have it kind of come up so it'll be wider at the top than it is at the base. So this should get you through today, maybe even the next class you work on this. You should not be finishing these too quickly. They are going to collapse on you. I would say err on the side of caution and take your time. Really, just relax. I like to kind of get into a meditative state, maybe put some calming music on, and the more frustrated you get and the quicker you try to work, the more this is probably going to collapse and fall because it'll be too wet. And then when you come back to this the next day, you can continue working on it, especially if you get like 2 or 3 on today. It'll stiffen up a little here. It'll be easier to build on top of it. Make sure this goes back in your bin, and you put the lid on tight so this is not dry by the next class. If you feel like it's drying out a lot, you can always take a moist paper towel and put that on top as well. That'll help keep it wet. So I hope this helped out. If you have any questions, of course, please feel free to ask. Enjoy making.